What if Ezra Bridger saved Count Dooku using the world between worlds? That's our story for today. Hope you guys enjoy, and let's get right into this one. Quick break before we get started. This video is sponsored by Manta Sleep, and folks, I wouldn't be back with Manta if I didn't genuinely think that their products were excellent. I've never been someone who uses a sleep mask until I got this one from Manta. Sleep masks have always been uncomfortable to me or just unnecessary. They didn't actually keep out light, it was just not for me. But then I got this one, and it was everything I didn't know that I needed. So if you want anything from Manta Sleep, now is the time. From November 19th through the 27th, they're doing the early Black Friday and Christmas sale, 15% off site-wide, and you get a free holiday recharge kit. So go check that out. But let me show you why I love this mask. First off, the adjustability fits any head or any comfortability that you want. Everything velcros nicely together, so you can literally shape it to your exact base. And I'm someone who spends way too many hours staring at screens. Probably, like many of you, and my eyes get pretty cooked. I need to take more breaks, get better rest, and the pro nap movement is something I've finally begun to buy into much more. Take more breaks, and if you want to nap and recharge your brain, their whole design is built around that idea. Real darkness, real comfort, zero pressure on the eyes, whenever you want it, all hours of the day. And if you want to check it out, head over to Manta Sleep, their website, and use my code SWGalaxy for 10% off of your order. And again, the early Black Friday sale is running November 19th to the 27th, 15% off everywhere on the site, plus a free holiday recharge kit. Alright, back to the video. Our story begins in the world between worlds as Ezra Bridger is walking alone between the winding pathways. Little did Ezra know that this was something that the Sith Lord of the Galaxy, Darth Sidious, the Emperor himself, was hoping for. Sidious could not access this realm by himself. He needed the help of the Jedi to open it and bring him inside of it, and he would be here soon. But for now, Ezra continued moving through the many winding bridges, looking through the portals, hearing voices from years in the past and in the future. Some he recognized, most he did not. But there was one in particular that made him stop in his tracks. This time, he would not save Ahsoka Tano. Ezra instead heard the voice of Palpatine echoing around, telling a younger man, holding a blue and red lightsaber, to kill an older man. Ezra could only recognize Palpatine. The two men here were a mystery to him, but something was pulling at Ezra as he looked into the helpless, confused, betrayed eyes of this older man. And so, right as Palpatine said to do it, and Anakin Skywalker moved to snip the two lightsabers together, Ezra instinctively reached into the portal and grabbed Dooku, pulling him backwards out of the ship that he was in and into the world between worlds. Out in the past, Palpatine and Anakin would both just watch as Dooku just disappeared. Anakin just snipped a small piece of his hair, but nothing else. Both of them stood in silence for a moment, but as the ship began to shake heavily, and they were both forced to evacuate with Obi-Wan anyways, they were unsure of what was going on. And as they eventually made their escape, there was no sign of Dooku. The two of them could only assume that Dooku disappeared after Anakin killed him, or he escaped into some sort of trapdoor and died when the spire exploded anyways. Either way, Dooku had to be assumed dead, and nothing would change. But now in this present day, Dooku would slowly sit up and look around this mystical realm. He looked over to Ezra with confusion, simply asking what kind of trick this was. How did he get here? Ezra fumbled around his words, trying to explain to this man what was going on. But Dooku just stood and looked to where his hands used to be. He cursed himself for letting Skywalker beat him, but above all, he cursed himself for not seeing the truth. Palpatine has betrayed him. Ezra was muttering that he doesn't know why he was sent here. He thought it was to stop the Empire, but for some reason, he was guided to him. Dooku's eyebrows raised. The Empire, he asked, and everything came together. This place, this world between worlds, was a place between the past and the future. This boy just saved him and brought him to the future where Palpatine has won. The two of them spent so long just being confused about everything, and soon a new portal behind them opened. Emperor Palpatine was here, using Sith alchemy to see into this realm. He could not get into it without the help of a Jedi, so he planned to rip Ezra out of here and use him to enter this realm. But as Palpatine looked in, he saw a man long forgotten, Dooku, and Dooku stared down the Sith Lord, a moment that seemed like an eternity, and he then told Ezra to run. They must get out of here. And together, the two of them took off and dove through the exit portal. once more foiling Palpatine's plans to enter into this realm. As they escaped, Sabine and Zeb would fire at stormtroopers, trying to cut their escape off, and the entire Jedi Temple would collapse behind them. The four of them and Chopper would get into a ship, barely blasting off in time to escape the Empire again. And in this ship, Sabine would point a blaster at Dooku, asking who he is. For some reason, Sabine did recognize this man, though she couldn't put a finger on exactly who he was. Dooku said that his name is Jin. He was a Jedi when the Republic fell, and young Ezra here has found a way to save him. And if they don't mind, he would love to know everything possible about this new empire. Sabine said they aren't so sure that he's not a threat, but Dooku almost amusingly held up his charred sleeves where his hands used to be, saying that even if he wanted to fight them, he wouldn't last very long. So Ezra decided to pass the time by sitting down and going over everything that he knew from his studies and his time learning with the Ghost Crew, and for an hour of hyperspace travel, Dooku, posing under the name Jin, would hear all of it. The Jedi fell, just as Palpatine wanted, and in their wake, he created the Empire. Dooku still really couldn't believe it. Just a few hours ago, he was sure that Palpatine truly saw his vision for the future of the galaxy. But now, everything has changed. Now, Dooku was focused on one main goal above all. He wanted to end Palpatine's reign as Emperor. He wanted to destroy the man that betrayed him. Dooku would also ask Ezra about Anakin, the man that was about to kill him in the portal. Is he still alive? Dooku knew that if Anakin were still around, his power must have grown exponentially. But Ezra said that he only knows the name Anakin because of Ahsoka, and Ahsoka died fighting a man called Darth Vader, who claimed to have killed Anakin Skywalker. Dooku actually found this to be quite interesting. Either the man called Vader was more powerful than Anakin, or Anakin has become Vader. Either way, the ship would soon land on Yavin 4, and Dooku would be ushered inside to the medical rooms, where he would be given new hands. The work began, and Dooku would quickly have his beard shaved off so he would be unrecognizable. Dooku underwent the surgery to be given robotic hands, and he spent the time asking the doctor all about this rebellion. It was rather fascinating. Planets and people rising up in defiance of the Empire. When the surgery was finished, the clean-shaven Dooku exited the room and walked into the main area, only for around 50 rebel soldiers to run from hiding spots and quickly surround Dooku with their blasters charged. Dooku held up his new hands as Bail Organa emerged with Ezra and Sabine. Sabine said that she knew she recognized him. He was Dooku. Dooku immediately regretted shaving his beard, as it was all for nothing, and he was quickly arrested and escorted deep into the Yavin Temple, where a council of Mon Mothma, Bail Organa, General Dodonna, and Admiral Raddus were waiting. And for the first time since being pulled into this new realm, Dooku truly found himself feeling like he was not in some sort of dream. This was real, and the leaders of this rebellion were now staring at him, asking him for the truth in what is going on here. Dooku would ask for Ezra Bridger to be called in to help explain everything, and so he was. Ezra went over the world between worlds, and he told the full truth of how he believes he was guided to a way to stop the Empire. At first, he thought he was being guided to Ahsoka or Kanan, but instead, he was pulled to a portal with Dooku. For Mon, Bail, and the others, this was hard to grasp. Every day, they were forced to deal with ground-level issues without the help of the Jedi or some cosmic power. The fight with the Empire was real, bloody, gritty, and it tested all of them. So, for them to suddenly hear that Ezra entered some cosmic realm and pulled Dooku out of it was not easy to grasp. Bail asked Dooku why he thinks Ezra was called to him, and Dooku said it's actually rather simple. There was no one in the galaxy who now carries the disdain for Palpatine, along with the full truth of who he is, quite like Dooku. Dooku said he has the secrets of the galaxy that no one else has, as the two of them, he and Palpatine, were once working directly together to create this empire during the Clone Wars. This was information that people in the rebellion had speculated on, but it was never truly confirmed. Mon asked Dooku if he could prove it, and he said he could. The galaxy could learn the truth about their emperor, and more systems would quickly rally to the rebellion, and planning stages would quickly go into effect for an eventual plan to expose the emperor. But for now at least, Dooku was kept in the lower levels of the Yavin Temple in a prison cell. The people here still didn't know if he could be trusted after the Clone Wars. But one person would quickly learn to trust him, young Ezra Bridger. He found Dooku to be fascinating, and he secretly ventured down into this prison area almost every night to hear stories about the old Jedi Order and also to train. At first, Dooku found Ezra's personality to be quite off-putting. The overconfidence and the sarcasm, it reminded Dooku quite a bit of a different Jedi he often encountered during the Clone Wars. But Ezra was special. He was without a master, and he was trying to work through his growing power, combined with the call of the dark side that was gnawing at him. Dooku also realized that Ezra was a Jedi in this new era without a true Jedi Order. He was not bound to the Senate or politics. He was simply fighting as a Jedi for what he thought was right in this galaxy. Dooku would grow to admire that quality quite a bit, as it was what he often thought the Jedi were supposed to be. So, he helped Ezra grow, and he admitted to the boy that he was once a dark side user. Ezra was not afraid of this. He knew what the darkness felt like, and how to toss it aside. Dooku would also tell Ezra all about Depa Billaba, the master to Kanan, along with Mace Windu, the master to Depa. Ezra would learn all about his lineage as a Jedi, and eventually, Ezra was off-world for a long while, as the Battle of Lothal was upon them, and Dooku decided this would be a good time to truly earn the trust of these rebels, even if he has to bend some rules to do it. Dooku would overhear from the guards that the battle for Lothal has begun, and he would use a mind trick on them to let him free. He could have done this ages ago, but he truly did want to observe this rebellion from here and learn as much as he could. He now believed in their effort. He believed in Ezra. The rebels were too occupied to notice as he took off in one of their ships, and out above Lothal, Ezra Bridger just escaped the ship where a hologram of Palpatine was once again trying to get him to enter into the world between worlds via a rebuilt section of the temple from the planet below. Ezra tore down the temple and rejoined the battle being led by Admiral Thrawn. The Grand Admiral just discovered the shields were reactivated, thanks to the teams at battle. Rook was fallen, and as Thrawn saw his forces being torn apart, the door behind him was opened. Ezra Bridger was here, and suddenly, the Purgle came out of nowhere, surrounding the Chimera. Ezra was willingly about to give himself up in order to liberate his home planet, but as he looked at Thrawn, something else appeared, a single ship, and the ramp lowered outside of the Chimera as Ezra saw Dooku standing on the ramp. Ezra smiled with excitement, knowing Dooku could be trusted, and he used the Force to push Thrawn out of the front window. Dooku reached out and stabbed him right through the chest with his red lightsaber, killing Thrawn. Ezra then leapt out of the ship as well, landing on the open ramp. Just a second later, the Purgle rose up with the Chimera in the Imperial fleet and jumped to hyperspace. The liberation of Lothal would be completed, and Dooku helped Ezra into this ship, telling the boy that he heard of this mission while on Yavin. He watched the end of it from the sky here, waiting for his opportunity, and Dooku said he continues to be impressed by this rebellion. And from here, with the Imperials cleared out of Lothal, Dooku would speak to Hera Syndulla, and together, Hera would tell Dooku the rebellion's idea for how he can be a true help to their cause. Hera wasn't as hesitant to trust Dooku as the others. The clones' ability to trust Dooku was far less, but when they heard that it was Dooku who saved Ezra, even Rex would be able to give Dooku a nod of gratitude. Hera revealed that the Empire had recently built a huge communications tower that was capable of broadcasting a message all across the galaxy, and it was here on Lothal. The rebels had actually used it once before, and the Empire had been forced to destroy it, but it was rebuilt and loaded with 10 times the security as before. Of course, all of that security had just fought in this battle, and with Lothal now freed, the tower was freed. So Hera would ask Dooku to speak to the galaxy, tell them the truth. And so Dooku would get to work. Standing at the base of the Lothal communications tower, he felt a strange, deep feeling inside of him. It was a mix of pride and conflict, as just around 30 days ago, he was on his knees in front of Skywalker, waiting for death, feeling the ultimate betrayal of the Sith. Sidious had promised him power, a place beside him, a role in shaping this galaxy, and instead, Dooku saw that he was nothing more than a placeholder for Skywalker. That moment has replayed in his mind every single night since Ezra pulled him into the world between worlds, and now, after seeing the Empire, Dooku saw that Sidious had perfected the vision they once planned to build together, but without the ideals, without the vision and the balance that Dooku once was convinced himself that he stood for. But he quickly realized the truth. He was just like Sidious in the past. His empire would have been just as horrible for the entire galaxy. And living among the rebels, it was so grounding for Dooku. They weren't polished or powerful like the Jedi, nor were they vicious or controlled like the Separatists. They were messy, passionate, stubborn, strong people who refuse to bow to oppression. They fight because they believe everyone deserves to live free. Watching these rebels showed Dooku everything he and Sidious claimed to be building was everything Dooku had hated while he was growing up as a Jedi. And now, maybe for the first time in decades, he actually felt really useful, really needed, like he could actually repair something instead of endlessly tearing it apart, waiting for a future that would never come to pass, a future he now knew was completely wrong. So now he would indeed speak to the galaxy, knowing that his words could set the Empire on fire. The communications tower would spark to life, and Dooku would reveal that he was back. He said some of the people out there know him from the Clone Wars. Many of them were taught to fear him, but today, Dooku said he comes to them not as a warlord or as a separatist, but instead as a man who finally sees the truth. Dooku told the people that the empire they live under was designed and carefully engineered by the man who now sits on the throne. Dooku revealed that Emperor Palpatine was once his master in the dark arts. He trained Dooku to be a Sith because he is a Sith, the ancient enemy of the Jedi Order. He forged both sides of the Clone Wars, controlling both the Republic and the Separatists. He helped Dooku to engineer the clone army. He oversaw the droid armies. He orchestrated the conflict that tore the galaxy apart. And when the war had served its purpose, he turned the Jedi Order, the defenders of the Republic, into the victims of which an empire would be born from. Dooku said now that he stands before these people as the man who helped Palpatine, as one who believed his lies, as one who thought the Republic was beyond saving. But he now sees the truth. The Empire was never the answer, and every life lost in the Clone Wars was a life Palpatine used to take power as an emperor. And then, Dooku said that here on Lothal, he's seen something that he thought was long dead. Hope. People of every system fighting for each other. These rebels are everything the Empire fears. So Dooku asked the people to stop listening to the lies of the Empire. This rebellion, it is not scarce nor weak. It is powerful, growing, and it can take down this empire with the help of the people coming together. So he urged them to join the rebellion. He urged them to stand with the people. And in the weeks following Dooku's broadcast, entire systems would begin to rise up against the Empire. Old separatist worlds that were abandoned by the Empire opened their shipyards. People from all over felt this renewed hope, and the rebellion grew faster than anyone expected, with new fleets, armies, and backing. But with that growth came fractures, and as the ranks expanded, so too did the risks. Imperial spies could slip into the chaos with more ease than ever. Rebel outposts that were well hidden would suddenly fall within days. As the rebellion grew, they were easier to find. The largest battle since the Clone Wars would erupt across the galaxy on Ryloth, Onderon, and Raxus. But the Empire was not wiping out the rebellion with ease anymore. The war was much more even. And soon, Bail Organa knew that time had come. Time for him to bring in his greatest secret, as he would tell Dooku to go to Tatooine and tell an old enemy of his that the time to return to the galaxy is upon him. Out in the galaxy, Obi-Wan Kenobi was alone in his small home, messing with the old HoloNet receiver that he'd kept patched together for years. The device often cracked with voices, reporting on rebel victories or sudden losses. He would sometimes hear Dooku's name over and over, and it unsettled him every time. The rebellion was growing faster than anything he'd imagined. Part of him was proud, but he also felt the familiar ache and call of responsibility. And then, Obi-Wan felt a familiar presence arriving next to him on the planet. He looked outside to see Ezra Bridger and Count Dooku were here. Obi-Wan had to remind himself that Dooku was no longer a true enemy, and Dooku slowly approached, seeing the toll that the sons have taken on Kenobi, and Dooku said they need him to return. The rebels need the Jedi. Obi-Wan's eyes moved towards the horizon, where young Luke Skywalker could be found, and Kenobi would bring them inside, listening to the full story of how Dooku survived and why he changed his ways of darkness. Kenobi would soon send Ezra to retrieve Obi-Wan's speeder from down the hill, as Obi-Wan closed his eyes, and Dooku wondered what he was doing. But seconds later, a shimmering blue ghost of Qui-Gon Jinn would appear, greeting Dooku, affirming to Dooku that he has chosen the right path after being given this second chance. And over the next few days, Obi-Wan would finally recruit Luke to his true calling, and his training as a Jedi would begin. In the months that followed their journey to Tatooine, the galaxy changed at a pace that no one could quite keep up with. The Galactic Civil War was terribly bloody and brutal, and it was guided by the light of the returning Jedi from across the galaxy. Dooku had committed himself to finishing Ezra's training alongside Obi-Wan as he began guiding Luke Skywalker as a Jedi. Obi-Wan and Dooku formed an interesting bond. Obi-Wan could never move past who Dooku was in the Clone Wars, but he could feel the determined shift in Dooku. Their alliance became key for the rebellion as a sort of symbol that even the deepest fractures in this galaxy can come together to fight this empire. And as the rebellion grew by liberating system after system, the empire began to crack. Stormtroopers began turning away. Governors turned against each other and on their people as the people protested the empire. And as the weeks passed by, the empire started losing ground much faster than expected. Eventually, the war came to Coruscant. A daring assault on the Imperial capital world was massive, as rebel fleets coordinated across space. And as the Imperial blockade was broken through, the rebellion would pour into the world. Ezra Bridger, now one of the most well-known faces of the rebellion, led the ground assault, as rebel forces stormed the Imperial palace. Luke Skywalker took to the skies, flying alongside Harrison Dula, and recently recruited Han Solo, as they were guiding squadrons through the clouds and into the heart of the capital. Luke, Hera, and Han were three of the best pilots in the galaxy, and with rebel fighters behind them, they were unstoppable. And deep within the throne room of the palace, the final battle would finally commence. Obi-Wan Kenobi and Dooku would move together to confront their destinies. Sidious and Vader knew this day was coming. No words had to be shared, as the duels began with overwhelming power, deep histories, deep emotions all colliding at once. Every strike from Dooku and every movement from Kenobi was fueled by years of betrayal, regret, and loss. Sidious's rage met Dooku's newfound clarity as Vader's cruelty slammed against Obi-Wan's calm resilience. Flashes of blue, red, and white blades were moving through the room as Dooku had purified his red blade. The fight dragged through halls, pushing all four of the older fighters to their limits. But in the end, the combined strength of Obi-Wan and Dooku would overwhelm the Sith as they used the hope and the feelings from just outside of the palace to use and fuel their victories. Vader and Sidious would die to Kenobi and Dooku as rebel forces were flooding into the palace. Coruscant was taken. The planet would cheer in victory, celebrating this rebellion as the galaxy could finally start again without Palpatine. Time would move quickly from here. In the days, weeks, months, and years following the fall of the Empire, the galaxy would find balance for the people. Count Dooku would become one of the key minds of shaping this new republic. Despite his terror in the past, his political instincts could not be denied. He would help bring together Imperial worlds, former separatist territories, and forgotten Outer Rim sectors. And under Leia Organa's leadership, the new republic would grow quickly, building a government that learned from the failures of the past. Over time, Ezra and Luke would train together under Obi-Wan's distant guidance, becoming pillars of a new Jedi Order. And when Dooku would finally feel that he's served his purpose, he slipped quietly away to Dagobah, finding Yoda, finding the comforting presence of Qui-Gon's ghost, and Dooku retired from the galaxy and would soon die in peace, as Obi-Wan remained a guiding presence for Luke and Ezra as they became true Jedi, helping the galaxy grow into something shaped by the people who fought for it. And folks, that is our story for today. One it's interesting because you got to take Dooku, from this mindset he was in this very specific moment where he was betrayed and everything he knew collapsed in on itself. If you take Dooku from even 10 minutes earlier, it's a completely different story. Dooku's still a Sith who thinks, he can side with Palpatine. But in that moment where Anakin's got him defeated, I think Dooku realizes everything he fought for was a lie, and he probably regrets every choice he ever made. So I really wanted to emphasize that in just this second chance he was given and just do a sort of light side Dooku story, and I enjoyed it quite a lot. A relationship between Dooku and Ezra I think would be quite interesting, so wanted to explore that a bit. I think Dooku would see Ezra as a Jedi that he almost admires, just because, as I mentioned in the story, Ezra's not part of the order that was bound to the Senate, and instead is legitimately just living as a Jedi, doing what's right, for the love of the game, because it's the right thing to do almost. So yeah, I think Dooku in this era would be super interesting, and I hope I conveyed that in this story. Appreciate you guys watching. Let me know what you want to see next. I put out a poll, and those are the other three are videos that will be done eventually. But yeah, if you guys have other ideas, let me know. Again, appreciate you a lot. Subscribe, hit like, hit the hype button. I don't know, whatever that is. Appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next video.